In this video, I'm going to show you just how quickly and easily an interior light fixture can be installed. And along the way, I'm also going to point out some huge mistakes that most people don't even realize they're making when installing these interior light fixtures. I'll show you exactly what those mistakes are and how it should be properly done. So let's go ahead and jump right in. All right, so the first thing that we always want to do anytime we're dealing with electricity is whatever we're working on, we want to make sure that the power is turned off. Now in this case, we're dealing with lights, so they're on light switches. So if you're somewhere alone and you know nobody's going to turn on the light switch behind you, if you turn off that light switch, that's going to cut the power. But the safest way is always going to be to go turn off the circuit breaker that supplies the power to your lights or whatever it is that you're working on. All right, so as you can see, all three of my lights went out at the same time. So I know I have cut power to these light fixtures. So now I can get started with removing them. And just one thing to quickly note is while I'm going to be removing and installing new pendant lights, these instructions for the most part will pertain to the vast majority of your interior light fixtures. But of course, always follow the instructions that come with whatever light fixture you get. All right, so we know our power has been completely disconnected, so now we can get started on removing these. And the first thing to do in order to remove these is pretty much always going to come down to these two knobs up here on the light fixture base. So all we have to do is reach up there and turn them counterclockwise, and then once you get to the bottom of however long the bolt is that they're on, they will just come off just like that. Now on the second one, I want to make sure I'm holding my hand up on the base of the fixture, because once I release this, it's going to want to come down. So I'm just going to do the same thing, turn it counterclockwise until it comes off. And now the base will come down and the wiring will be exposed. All right, so as you can see, our mounting bracket is now exposed. And the good news is this mounting bracket is exactly like the one that comes with these particular light fixtures. So I can go ahead and reuse these instead of removing them and just wasting time by installing the new ones. However, for the purposes of this video, if that is not the case for you, I'm going to go ahead and show you on this first one how you can go about removing this and installing the new mounting bracket. Now, if we look at our wiring that is currently up here in this box, as you can see, we've got a black wire, a white wire, and a bare copper wire for the ground. Well, do you see anything wrong with the way that the electricians wired this up? Yeah, that bare copper wire right there is supposed to go around this green ground screw and then tighten down. The reason that is done, you want to make sure that you are bonding your ground wire to your bracket, is say in the event that your hot wire gets loose in that box, it makes contact with this metal. If for whatever reason you were to touch the base or anything that conducts electricity on it, without it being grounded and tripping the breaker, that box or that base is going to be energized. And if you touch it, you can become the ground and you can receive a shock or electrocution. So I'll show you exactly how to do that in just a moment. All right, so now in order to be able to release my light fixture and just completely remove it from this box, I'm going to go ahead and expose this wiring. As you can see, we've got some very cheap wire nuts that were used. So all I need to do is remove each one of these wire nuts from the wires, turning them counterclockwise. So I'll go ahead and do that now. Just pull off the wire nut, and then typically your wiring is going to be wrapping around the wiring coming out of the house. Just have to pull that off of there, and then just do the same for the other two wires. So typically you're going to have two screws on each side. Just need to remove those using an impact or a drill with a Phillips head, and then that will just come down and away. All right, so now we can take our new mounting bracket, run the wiring through the center of that bracket. Then once you've got it set up the way that you want, you just take the screws that are either supplied with the light fixture, or you can reuse the screws a lot of the times from the previous bracket, insert it through the new mounting bracket and into the holes below it in the junction box underneath. And then just tighten them down by hand to get it set in place. Then once they're set, you can use your drill or impact and tighten them down the rest of the way. All right, so now that mounting bracket is in place, now I need to figure out how long or short I need my chain to be, and also my cord that's going to be supplying the power to the light fixture. So this is going to totally vary by situation and people's personal preferences. So I'm going to quickly show you how to remove each one of these links so you don't do any damage to the chain, it still looks good, and also show you the easiest way of doing this. All right, so for me personally, I need to remove 10 links from this chain in order for it to be the correct length for where I'm installing it, which is going to be this link right here. What I personally prefer to use are crescent wrenches like this. My brake is on this side of the link, so I'll just take one of my crescent wrenches, insert the first side of that link into that crescent wrench, and then span it all the way across that link to where both of them are in the jaws of the crescent wrench, and leave the break right there. And again, I'm using crescent wrenches where a lot of people will use pliers like this, which you can, but I find it is incredibly easy to then just take a second crescent wrench, do the exact same thing on the other side of the link, and then once I've got that indentation or that break line of the link in between those two wrenches, I'll just rotate them in opposite directions like so. So now you can see that link is broken apart. I can just remove my wrenches. In this case, I can completely remove the link that I bent open because a carabiner clip will take the place of that link. So I'll just put that in place. And now I have something that's going to attach to my new light fixture, as that is the way that these particular ones are designed. Now you might not have carabiner clips on the end. They might just completely be chains. And in that case, you would keep the link that you bent open, leave it on the chain once you've removed the other links, and then just do everything in reverse using your wrenches or pliers, whatever you choose to use, and then just bend that link back together. So as you can see, it's now completely closed back up and looks like nothing was done. And of course, again, if this is the case for you, this is where your light fixture would be attached to this last link. So obviously you wouldn't want to close it up until your light fixture was attached. All right, so now in this case with this fixture, I'm going to take the bottom carabiner on that chain and go ahead and connect it to the top of my light fixture. And now this is where different people might do different things. So in the picture that comes with this light fixture, your wire and your chain are separate from each other. The wire just basically is going to be setting up against the chain once it's mounted to the ceiling. I personally do not care for that. If you don't mind that, then that is certainly a good way of doing it. I personally have always interwoven my wiring through my chains that are hanging the light. Now, one really big mistake that I see a lot of people do when they do this and they're running their wiring through their chains for their light fixtures is they'll go through each one of the chain links. And in some cases, even skipping one is not going to be enough. But if you go into each one of these, so like this, I insert it into the first one, insert it into the second one, and then pull it all the way through. And then just do that the entire length of the chain. I can tell you for a fact, you are not gonna like the way that this looks because that wire is adding rigidity to your chain. It's actually gonna be shortening it because it's gonna be in there at angles, and those angles compound. So it's really gonna shorten the chain some, so it might not be the length that you want. And it's also just not going to look good either. You're gonna see what looks like kind of a wad of chain hanging from your ceiling. So what I prefer to do is, let me just go ahead and remove the wiring. But for me personally, I like to insert it into every fourth link. So I'm just gonna do that the whole way. On this particular one, I'm gonna insert it in, alternating which side I go into it, every fourth link until I get all the way up to the top. And now we're ready to go ahead, wire this up, and install this light fixture. All right, so now I've got my base here that the light fixture gets attached to, and I've got my wiring and chain here attached to my light fixture. So the first thing I want to do now is I want to take my wiring that's attached to my fixture and insert it into this hole right here in the center of my base. So I'll just go ahead, take those wires from my light fixture, insert them into that hole, and then push them all the way through. All right, so now that I've got the wiring inserted into the base, now I can take the carabiner that's attached to my chain to my light fixture and go ahead and insert it into this eyelet on the base. And it just snaps into place like that. All right, so now we can actually connect our wires now. So I'm just gonna separate these out. Got our bare copper wire for our ground, our black wire for our hot, and our white wire for our neutral. All right, so this is very easy in this case. A lot of your light fixtures will not differentiate between the black hot or line wire and your white neutral. A lot of times they will both be the same color. They might just be clear like my old light fixtures. And then you have to look for a ridge on those wires to figure out which one is the hot and which one is the neutral. If you do find that your wiring is like that, where they do not differentiate with colors and you have to find that ridge to figure out which one is which, the one that you can feel and see ridges on the wire is gonna be your neutral. The other one is gonna be your hot. So that's how you can tell the difference on wiring that looks like this with no coloring distinction on it. So the first wire I'm gonna connect is my bare copper wire to the bare copper wire coming out of my junction box in the ceiling. Again, I'll just take my inline connector, I'll flip up both of those levers on each side so the wires can be inserted in. I'll connect the ground wire coming out of the ceiling to one side of the inline connector, flip it up to the bottom, verify that it's fully seated, and then once I verified that, I just flip that lever down, and now it's attached in place. Now with that other lever flipped up on the other side, I'll take my bare copper ground wire coming from my light fixture, insert it into the inline connector, flip it up to the bottom, verify that it is seated. Once I've verified all of that, I can flip that lever down, and now my two ground wires are connected. And so now I can take those ground wires and the connector and push that up into the junction box up in the ceiling, so it's up and out of the way and also protected. Now we're not done with this ground wire yet. We talked a little bit earlier about how the electricians missed a step when they installed this originally. We've still got this green ground screw that's right here on our mounting bracket, and so all we need to do is take that ground wire that's coming from the fixture. We're gonna wrap it around that green ground screw in a clockwise direction like so, and then once that's wrapped around it, we can go ahead and tighten down that green ground screw. All right, so next I'm gonna work on my white neutral wire. So I'm gonna take the white neutral wire that's coming out of the ceiling. I'm gonna take the stranded white neutral wire that's coming from my light fixture. And again, I'm gonna take my WAGO, open up both sides of the levers, insert that white neutral wire from the ceiling into that inline connector. Look at the bottom of it, verify that it's seated, flip that lever down, then take the white neutral wire coming from my light fixture, insert it into the other side of the inline connector, flip that lever down, and now my neutral wires are connected. And so now I can push the wiring and that inline connector up into the junction box. Which, by the way, if you are not pushing your wiring up into your junction box and you're just leaving it out here underneath of the cover, but above this mounting bracket, that is a big, big mistake. Your wiring and your splices have got to be contained inside of a junction box in order for it to be decode. So a lot of people make that mistake where they just leave their connectors and their connections out of the junction box itself and just under whatever decorative cover or shroud of the light fixture that they're installing. So make sure that you're pushing those up inside of that junction box. All right, so now last but obviously not least, as it's what supplies the power, I'm gonna take my inline connector, connect it to the black wire coming out of my ceiling, flip the lever down, then take the black wire coming from my new light fixture, insert it into the other side of the inline connector, flip that lever down. Now those are attached to each other, and now I wanna make sure that all of my wiring and connectors are pushed up into the junction box. All right, so now all that there is left to do is just take my slack from my wiring, put it up underneath of that cover, take my base plate, line it up with the two bolts coming down from that mounting bracket, insert those bolts through the corresponding holes. Then once those bolts are through, we'll take the decorative nuts that come with this particular light fixture and just turn them clockwise all the way up until they either can't be tightened anymore or it feels like we can't really turn them a whole lot more without exerting a whole lot of force on them. And so now light fixture number 1 is installed. So I have 2 more light fixtures to remove and install new ones in their place. I'm not gonna go over everything step by step up close. Again, I'll just start by removing the decorative nuts off of the base of the light fixture, pull the base down, disconnect and remove all of the wiring from the wiring coming out of the ceiling, make all of the adjustments to my chain lengths as I need to, and also shortening my wiring, restripping everything, inserting my wiring through the hole in the decorative plate, which let me pause right there. And one thing to really quickly note is while on the first one, I only had 1 black hot, 1 white neutral, and 1 ground wire. As you can see with this fixture box and also this fixture box, we have 2 of each, and that's because we have wires going from that fixture to this one and then this one to the one that we just installed. So keep that in mind in case you're wanting to go the WAGO route, that in cases like this where we're installing pendant lights, you're probably gonna need more than just the inline connector or 2-port connectors. In this case, we're actually gonna need 3-port connectors to be able to accommodate the 2 wires coming from the ceiling and then the 3rd wire that is coming then from the light fixture that's being installed here. And with that said, as a bonus tip, hanging light fixtures on a ceiling can sometimes be a little bit difficult, especially if your fixtures are heavier because you're having to work overhead, you're having to hold the light fixture up while you're trying to make your electrical connections. Well, one thing you can do to not only make everything a lot easier, but also a whole lot faster is to go ahead and basically preload your wiring. So in this case, since I know that I'm going to need 3-port connectors for my other 2 light fixtures, I'm going ahead and putting 3-port Wago connectors on my light fixture wiring. So this way, when I go to hang this, all my levers are already in the up position. I can just hold on the light fixture to support its weight and just very quickly insert each one of the wires into those open connector ports and then flip the levers down. So it'll make it a whole lot easier and a lot faster. And this is something that you would not be able to do with wire nuts. So that is another benefit of using the Wagos. And obviously, like I mentioned earlier, where we're going from inlines to now these 3 ports, that's where having an assortment kit can really come in handy. In this kit, I've got 2, 3, 5-port connectors and my inlines. And of course, you can get these assortment kits with the various connectors and quantities. So like always, I'll have links to this assortment kit along with other ones as well down in the description down below. When you click on those links, it will take you directly to whatever you clicked on so you can check them all out for yourself. But now I can get restarted with installing my light fixtures, making sure that all the brackets are installed properly, and then of course installing all of my wiring, bare copper ground to bare copper ground, white neutral to white neutral, and of course the black hot wire to the black wire from the fixture. And then last but not least, again, take the base plate, insert the bolts coming out of the mounting bracket through that base plate, and then put the new decorative nuts in on top, which is tightening it down to the ceiling and making everything nice and flush. So now each one of the pendants has been installed. Now we can turn the power back on and see if they work. And as you can see, each one of the lights are lighting up. They look great. This was not very hard to do. Should probably only take around 10 to 20 minutes for each one of them. But overall, a very easy installation to do. Just about anybody can do it. Of course, if you don't feel comfortable, always hire an electrician. But as you saw, there wasn't a whole lot to it. And you don't have to spend a ton of money to make a really meaningful upgrade like this that can really change the feel of a room. These were not very expensive, and for your convenience, I'll have links for all of these, along with other light fixtures and pendant lights that are similar to this that I've used in the past that I would recommend. I'll have links for those, along with all of the connectors and tools that I used in this video. I'll have links for everything you saw down in the description down below. When you click on those links, it will take you directly to whatever you clicked on, so you can check them all out for yourself. Now, if you found value in this video, then you'll definitely find value in some videos that I did in the past, where like this one, not only do I show how to install or repair something, but I'll go over some things that a lot of people don't really know about, but they really probably should when they're making these installs and repairs. If that would be of interest to you, all you have to do is click on one of these 2 videos right over here, whichever one interests you the most. And once you click on one of those videos, it will take you directly to it. But I hope that you found value in this video, and if you did, if you could do me a huge favor, hit that thumbs up button right down below. And of course, if you have any questions or comments still, you can leave those down in the comment section. And I'll catch you all in the next one. See ya.